नमस्ते, स्वागत है आपका इंडिया दिस वीक नए एपिसोड में और मैं हूं आपकी को-होस्ट आमना अंसारी।
Hi, this is Khalid Beg and welcome to yet another episode of India This Week. I'm your co-host. Please join me in welcoming Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Of course, Abhijit needs no introduction. And scientist Rajat Sharma, who's already done a stellar show with us with Kushal Mehra. Today, we're going to talk about something actually which is very relevant. We are amongst the third wave of Corona. And in fact, Abhijit right now is down with Omicron. How are you doing, Abhijit?
Do you want me to blow my nose on live TV to show you how I'm doing?
हाँ, इससे अच्छा इफेक्ट आएगा।
Good to see you see the lighter side, Abhijit. Right, so
Yes.
interesting, right? I mean, third wave चल रहा है. दुनिया seems to have forgotten कि ये कब आया था, because since 2 years this is the new normal. The new abnormal is the normal. But the most important thing is that we've forgotten that what exactly happened, right? March 2020 is when this came in our life. This invaded the entire planet. But before that, a state, the state of China, run by the Communist Party of China, tried to cover up a lot of things. Why aren't we talking about that? So in December, on 30th December, a doctor called Dr. Li Wielang, he put out these messages on the WhatsApp equivalent of China called WeChat, where he cautioned fellow workers against this new virus. And look at the fascism jo wahan hota hai. Other doctors telling him as I read this chat ki please aisa mat bolo, they might clamp down on us. And sadly wo leak out ho gaya. After which, if he was in a country like US or India, वो hero होते, लेकिन वहां वो villain बन गए. And the dreaded Public Security Bureau came, clamped down on him, said कि आप apology लिख लीजिए, right? And on Feb 6th, the Chinese state media said he's dead. Then they deleted that post. Then on 7th, they said he was alive. We tried to save him. So that death is also shrouded in mystery. But he left a deep impact on the people there. His last live streaming was watched by crores of people. There was genuine outpour of grief, anger, again, which is off the net. The sources have been removed by the dreaded Communist Party of China. And the hero of the world is not known. And that is what we want to talk about. In addition to that, we have journalists like Fang, Chen, Quishi, who disappeared because they were trying to get the truth out. And Ren Zhigang, who was a multi-billionaire tycoon whose only sin was that he criticized Xi Jinping, has been sent to 18 years of prison because he criticized the way the pandemic was handled. So Abhijit Iyer Mitra, what the hell is going on here? You have these 4 cases. The evidence is right in front of you. Why isn't the dreaded state of China being put to task and being tried for crimes against its own people and the world? What is being hidden? What exactly happened in Wuhan?
Look, scientifically speaking, we're never realistically going to know what happened at Wuhan. Now, see, I approach this when you do CBRN security, so chemical, biological, nuclear, and radioactive security, which is what I do, the one thing that has always been problematic is identifying the source of viruses. With chemicals, you can identify them. There's usually some kind of a production trace wherein, you can use chemical forensics to identify a mustard gas made in a certain place, a mustard gas made in a certain other place, and things like that. With nuclear, it is especially the forensics on nuclear are excellent. You can pretty much tell from the radioactive fallout what, where, etc. Same with radiological. Biological has always had huge problems in identification and attribution, right? And this has been so problematic. It's the biggest hindrance to treaties, to more effective treaties on controlling biological weapons, or the weaponization of of organic chemistry, so to say, is this whole problem of attribution. Because in order to punish, you first need to identify the source and where it was made and things like that, right? Now, this has been one issue. The second issue is what is happening at Wuhan. And we know what has been happening at Wuhan because we have all the documentation coming out of it, much of it funded by America. Right. We've just had the Project Veritas leaks on the Department of Defense, which knew what was happening. Fauci's been playing word games. According to him, he did. According to the official definition of gain of function, he did not fund gain of function research. But according to other people's definition of gain of function, he did fund the gain of function research, right? So this has always been a very problematic thing. But look, we knew right from the beginning, from about March 2020 itself, because of the point of origin, we knew it was China. Right. There were things. I've actually been very close to that Wuhan biological lab, and we used to keep getting shooed away. To be fair, we were just there with friends doing gallivanting around. We used to get shooed away from the area. You were generally told not to go there because there was sensitive research happening out there. It was militarized. The problem here is, and this is the third problem, a lot of what we know is being censored or cut off because of the big money that China throws. In this day and age, no country in the world can throw 1 million of its citizens into concentration camps based on their religion and get away with it the way China can. Remember the last time somebody tried to do that, which was Serbia in Kosovo, or the Bosnian Serbs in Bosnia. You remember what happened? There were 2 NATO campaigns successively. Okay, in Libya, a dubious doctrine called the responsibility to protect was implemented, and this was stopped. When Saddam Hussein tried killing his Shias after the 1991 war, they imposed a no-fly zone. The Shias and the Kurds after the 91 war, they imposed a no-fly zone and stopped it. But China gets away with it because China has so much money and it's bought all the right people. Again here, after wreaking havoc on the world for 2 years, China again gets away with it. Total free pass. And you'll have all this bogus nonsense about Biden having a diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Olympics. Everybody knows there's no bloody diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Olympics going on. They'll get away with it all over again. Because let's remember, Hunter Biden is compromised to this, to the Chinese regime. I think the only thing we can be grateful about is that China is in the midst of so many different deaths. Since Xi Jinping took over, they have gone 100% the USSR way of spending way over and above their means. There is a huge debt crisis happening, primarily because of the stupid spending on high-speed rail, the stupid spending on infrastructure and buildings, the extremely weak fiscal system, the demographic imbalance and things like that. I have no faith in America. I do have economics.
Okay, so that was pretty interesting. Amna, you want to ask Rajat your next question?
अभिजीत और खालिद को सुन के लगता है कि इस इशू के आसपास काफ़ी मिस्ट्री है जो हमें अभी आगे समझ में आएगा। तो इसके आगे रजत मैं आपसे क्वेश्चन पूछना चाहती हूँ कि फैब 2020 के अंदर ही एक जो बहुत ही मेडिकल रिनॉन्ड जर्नल है लैंसेट, उसमें एक लेटर पब्लिश हो गया था जो कि पैंडेमिक ब्रेकडाउन के सिर्फ 2 महीने के बाद ही हुआ। उस लेटर में ये कहा गया कि ये जो कोरोना वायरस है बेसिकली ये लैब मेड नहीं है बल्कि इसका ट्रांसमिशन नेचुरल हो रहा है। बट हमसे एक बात छुपा ली गई वहां पे, वो ये था कि ये लेटर जिसने लिखवाया था पीटर डसाक, वो जिस कंपनी को ऑन करते हैं वही कंपनी वुहान इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ वायरोलॉजी में करोड़ों का फंडिंग करती है। तो ये कन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट तो कहीं ना कहीं हमसे छुपा लिया गया। एनीवेज, मेरा क्वेश्चन पॉलिटिक्स पे नहीं है क्योंकि आप एक साइंटिस्ट हैं, तो मैं चाहूंगी कि आप हमें समझाइए इस एक्सपेरिमेंट के बारे में जिसे फंक्शन ऑफ गेन कहा गया। बेसिकली ये है क्या, ये एक्सपेरिमेंट है क्या, ये आप हमारे दर्शकों को समझाइए।
जी, गेन ऑफ फंक्शन, हाँ बिल्कुल। तो आप जैसे मेरी बैकग्राउंड में देख सकते हैं, एक छोटा सा कार्टून है, काफी बड़ा दिख रहा होगा स्क्रीन पे क्योंकि वो पूरी स्क्रीन पे है। तो जो गोल स्ट्रक्चर है जिसमें से लाल कलर के स्पाइक्स निकल रहे हैं वो तो आपका सरफेस है कोरोना वायरस का, पर उसके अंदर से जो येलो कलर का एक स्ट्रिंग निकल रहा है गोल्डन, दैट इज द न्यूक्लियर मटेरियल और द आरएनए इन दिस केस, जो कि सबसे क्रिटिकल एस्पेक्ट होता है किसी भी सेल का। ह्यूमन सेल्स में न्यूक्लियर मटेरियल डीएनए होता है, बट रेट्रोवायरसेस जो कि कोरोना वायरस है उसमें डीएनए नहीं होता, उसमें आरएनए होता है। तो ये पीछे जो आप देख रहे हैं वो आरएनए है। तो जब हम गेन ऑफ फंक्शन की बात कर रहे हैं तो फंक्शनैलिटी क्या है? फंक्शनैलिटी किसी भी वायरस या किसी भी सेल की ओरिजिनेट होती है उसके आरएनए या डीएनए से। तो इस केस में आरएनए, तो जो जीन्स हैं वो कुछ प्रोडक्ट्स बनाते हैं और वो प्रोडक्ट्स होते हैं प्रोटीन्स। तो अगर उन प्रोटीन्स की फंक्शनैलिटी को चेंज कर दिया जाए, मॉडिफाई कर दिया जाए या इंप्रूव कर दिया जाए, या उन जीन्स को ऑल्टर करके कुछ नए प्रोटीन प्रोडक्ट्स बनाए जाएं, उसको चेंज इन फंक्शनैलिटी कहते हैं। अब गेन की बात कहां से आती है? तो मैं थोड़ा सा पीछे जाऊंगा। जैसे अभिजीत ने बोला कि इट इज ऑल अबाउट द डेफिनेशन विच इज द प्रॉब्लम हियर। तो गेन ऑफ फंक्शन एज सच तो हर एक माइक्रोबायोलॉजिस्ट करता है। मैं बैक्टीरिया के साथ काम करता हूं, मैं बैक्टीरिया में कोई इंप्रूवमेंट लाने की कोशिश कर रहा हूं, तो वो भी एक गेन ऑफ फंक्शन है। लेकिन इस गेन ऑफ फंक्शन की जिसके बारे में हम बात कर रहे हैं, इसकी शुरुआत होती है 2011 से, जब एवियन फ्लू वायरस, जो कि जिसको हम बर्ड फ्लू वायरस के नाम से भी जानते हैं, जब वो फैला तो कुछ रिसर्चर्स ने उस डीएनए को ऑल्टर करके टेस्ट करने की कोशिश करी कि अगर हम इसकी पैथोजेनिसिटी या डिजीज कॉजिंग फंक्शनैलिटी को बढ़ाएं इसके न्यूक्लियर मटेरियल को चेंज करके, तो क्या हम स्टडी कर सकते हैं कि किस तरीके से इन्फेक्ट करेगा। वो पहला इंस्टेंस है जब इस डेफिनेशन को इस स्कोप में लिमिट करने का काम स्टार्ट हुआ 2000, और ये चलता गया। तो उसमें फिर इसको टर्मिनोलॉजी दी गई गेन ऑफ फंक्शन इन वायरसेस। फिर आते 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 2017, 15 या 14 में ये होता है कि जब ये पेपर्स पब्लिश हो जाने लगते हैं, तब साइंटिफिक कम्युनिटी में एक घबराहट सी महसूस होती है कि इन एक्सपेरिमेंट्स को किसी भी तरीके से रिपीट करा जा सकता है और इसमें इतनी रिस्क इन्वॉल्व हैं कि ये एक पोटेंशियल हेल्थ हैजर्ड बन सकते हैं। तो 2014 में गवर्नमेंट ऑफ यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ने इस रिसर्च को स्पेशली विद डिजीज कॉजिंग वायरसेस में बैन कर दिया। पर हम देखते हैं कि 2017 में इको हेल्थ अलायंस की फंडिंग होती है थ्रू द यूएस गवर्नमेंट, जिसमें फाउची का एंगल आता है, जो कि उस समय भी NSI के मेरे ख्याल से डायरेक्टर थे। और ये पूरी रिसर्च यूएस में ना होकर वुहान इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ वायरोलॉजी में होने लगती है। तो होता यह है कि काइमेरा डिजाइन किया जाता है पहले यहां पे, वो बैन क्यों हुआ? वो बैन इसलिए हुआ क्योंकि इस तरीके के वायरस बनाए गए जिसमें एक कोरोना वायरस का बैकबोन और दूसरे कोरोना वायरस की ह्यूमंस में इन्फेक्ट करने की एबिलिटी को एक साथ मिला दिया गया। जब वो हुआ तब वो रिसर्च बैन करी गई, पर वो अप्रूव होने लगी चाइना में। अब प्रॉब्लम ये है कि इस तरीके का सिमुलेशन आप दूसरे सिस्टम्स में भी करते हैं। अभिजीत आपको बेटर बता पाएंगे, लेकिन डिफेंस के जो सिस्टम्स होते हैं आप उनको आर्टिफिशियली कंप्यूटर जनरेशन में सिमुलेट करते हैं कि मैं किसी वेपन को इतना ज्यादा डिस्ट्रक्टिव बना लूं तो मैं उसको स्टडी कर सकता हूं आर्टिफिशियली। एक ही डिफरेंस जो मैं हाईलाइट करना चाहूंगा यहाँ पे वो ये है कि द रीजन इसको यूएस में बैन किया गया, क्योंकि जब उसका रिस्क असेसमेंट किया गया कि अगर ऐसी रिसर्च अलाउ करी जाएगी तो एयरबॉर्न वायरसेस जो कि ट्रांसमिट होते हैं एयर के थ्रू, उनके फैलने की रिस्क इतनी ज्यादा है कि BSL-4 एंड हायर लैब सिक्योरिटीज, विच इज आपने देखा होगा कि फुल सूटेड जो रहते हैं सिक्योरिटी लेवल के लैब्स होते हैं जिसमें आप पूरी तरीके से ढके हुए होते हो और हाईएस्ट बायो सिक्योरिटी होती है। ऐसे लैब्स में भी इन रिसर्च को कंडक्ट करने की जब रिस्क एनालिसिस की गई यूएस गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल्स के द्वारा, तब उन्होंने ये पाया कि ये उसके बाद भी बहुत रिस्की है। चाइना में जब ये रिसर्च होती है 2017 के बाद वुहान इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ वायरोलॉजी में, तो निकोलस वेड की जो इन्वेस्टिगेशनल रिपोर्ट है जो हम शेयर भी करेंगे और खालिद को मैंने और आपको भी पहले भेजी हुई है, सेमिनल रिसर्च है, उन्होंने ये बताया कि ये रिसर्च जब चाइना में वुहान इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ वायरोलॉजी में हो रही थी तो BSL-1 और BSL-2 लेवल सिक्योरिटीज में हो रही थी। BSL-1 और BSL-2 सिक्योरिटीज बेसिकली जो आपके रिसर्च लैब्स होते हैं यूनिवर्सिटी में, वो लेवल की बायो सिक्योरिटी होती है जिसमें आपको मास्क भी पहनना जरूरी नहीं है। तो उन लैब्स में इस तरीके की रिसर्च को अलाउ किया जाना, ये एक बहुत बड़ा सवाल उठाता है कि इतनी इमरजेंसी क्या थी इस रिसर्च को करवाने की यूएस के बाहर, वो भी सिक्योरिटी असेसमेंट्स और एनफोर्समेंट्स को कॉम्प्रोमाइज करके। तो ये एक छोटा सा बैकग्राउंड है जो मैंने आपको देना चाह रहा था।
अभिजीत, can we
categorically say that Dr. Fauci has a lot to hide, a lot of skeletons in the closet. In fact, now 1 crore deaths in the world, so 1 crore closets, skeletons in the closet. Along with that, this figure called Peter Dasak, along with that, the Communist Party of China. And is that the reason why we're seeing the mother of all the cover-ups in the world? Because you have a lot to do with the Democrats along with the rogue state of China. And that is why there is this cover-up. They're not letting us know that what exactly transpired. Can that be said?
It's much bigger than that. Because remember, the WHO itself is complicit in this. Lancet and lots of the international so-called medical pharma nexus is complicit in this. And I'll tell you why. You remember when Peter Dasak, the head of the EcoHealth Alliance, who Fauci contracted out to do all this gain-of-function research in China. Now, America has a long record of doing this.
We've sadly seen that you are willing to use the enforcement power of the Department of Justice to target those who have political views different than you, even if it's a mom at a PTA meeting. Let's try the other side. Are you willing to enforce the law fairly against people who are political allies of the president? At a Senate hearing in May, Dr. Fauci said, quote, "The NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute of Virology." That was under oath, under testimony. On October 20th, the NIH principal deputy director, in writing, directly contradicted it. Those two statements cannot be true. As you know, Section 1001 of Title 18 makes it a federal crime to knowingly make false statements to Congress. Is the Department of Justice investigating Dr. Fauci for lying to Congress? And will you appoint a special prosecutor to do so?
I'm going to say again, the memorandum that I issued is not partisan in any way. It has nothing to do with what I agree with or I don't agree with. I don't care whether the threats of violence come from the left or the right.
Could you answer the question I asked?
The second question, we don't comment on criminal investigations or other investigations.
Well, amazingly, when it's the political enemies of the administration, you comment loudly in a memo.
ठीक है, आपने ग्वांतानामो बे देखा होगा. जब वो खुद टॉर्चर नहीं करना चाहते थे, वो रेंडिशन करते थे to places like Syria and Libya and places like that. They used to send people to get tortured. And countries that pretend to be, protectors of human rights like Holland and Denmark were actually allowing these rendition flights, knowing full well that people were being sent to Syria and Libya to get tortured and so on and so forth.
Right.
They do the same thing. You remember stem cell research, a lot of stem cell research got banned, and everybody knows it gets carried out in China. We don't talk about it. And they all thought that, it was okay to do all of these things because China is where everybody goes. It's a low price, low risk because labor regulations can be bypassed, security regulations can be bypassed, ethical regulations can be bypassed. Same reason you send jobs overseas, because it's cheaper to do things in China is why you send this kind of research overseas. But remember what happened. Once they got caught, nobody has paid a price for this so far. I can still show you tweets from Dr. Dead. Well, he calls himself Dr. Ted, but the head of the WHO, but I call him Dr. Dead. Dr. Dead, there is still a tweet of his up saying, if you're not sick, please don't wear a mask, you're endangering other people. Okay, and it turns out that the problem was one of how the health definitions of atomization, which is to say the definition of airborne, had been set to a certain parameter, which they simply weren't willing to look at, and they knew it was airborne well before, they should have known it was airborne were it not for their own bureaucratic rigidity. But in addition to errors of omission, there have also been errors of commission. For example, Peter Dasak used Lancet as a bully pulpit to attack anyone who suggested that this started in Wuhan.
Right.
And mind you, this was the same man who was used for corona fact-checking by Facebook. So he was judge, jury, and executioner all in one. Have you seen Facebook apologize for anything? No. You're still seeing YouTube and Twitter take down things like that Joe Malone, the Dr. Malone interview with Joe Malone, the Dr. Malone interview with Joe Rogan,
Right.
because he said certain things. Mind you, everything that people have gotten banned for saying in the last 2 years has all been proven correct increasingly. Okay,
Right.
there is still an interview of Bill Gates, who's the other big part of this entire triangle. By the way, you know, these WHO head elections, they're all completely bogus. The guys who ran against each other, where one chap was the best man, Dr. Dead was the best man at the wedding of the guy he defeated the last time round in Geneva.
All right.
Okay,
Interesting.
so So it's a complete. It's this pretense of we are actually opposing points of view. It's like when you go to JNU, you have 50 shades of left. It's like that. They'll try to make out that they're the right, they are the left, they're everything. They're not. They're basically a cabal that looks after their own interests. And what you find in all of this is that there's been a consistent suppression of information, a shifting of goalposts, a shifting of definitions. To date, America is not able to affix responsibility. Tell me one health official who's actually been sacked. Has Dr. Dead been sacked from the WHO? No. Has Dr. Fauci been sacked from America? No. Nothing. And mind you, he was backing Trump when Trump was in power. Now that Biden is in power, he's pretending to be a great Democrat or whatever. And he's hiding. Today, if you saw his performance with Rand Paul, what was it about? It was about saying, because of you, I'm getting death threats. Oh my God, really? Seriously? Now, the problem here is Bill Gates is a very big funder of these things. He puts his money into certain medicines, which are then surprisingly fast-tracked. His Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation got kicked out of India. And because, they thrive off the validation that they give to brown people. And, brown people desperately require white man validation. Our prime minister is one of those prime examples. So when somebody like Bill Gates is willing to give him some lifetime achievement award, like that Philip Kotler Award for management or whatever, he's very happy to jump onto the bandwagon. They let him in. He does a joint event with the prime minister. And he says, yeah, man, the prime minister is like doing the best thing for health. This guy is sleaze bag number one. There is no corner in medicine he has not cut. There is no drug that he hasn't destroyed in order to promote his own investments. He uses this as a validation cycle to control that entire, the testing, the peer validation, the approvals and the output cycles. And you have him on record saying that, you need to get vaccinated. It's going to sort everything. And today we're hearing his own interview some 2-3 weeks back. The first shot isn't going to work. The second shot isn't really going to work. Now go in for the third shot.
Abhijit, it's clear now, Dr. Fauci, Peter Dasak, Bill Gates, Xi Jinping, and our own Mr. Tedros, right? Now, we did a lot of research on Tedros. The guy is very dicey. He has covered up not one, not two, 3 cholera outbreaks is what he has overlooked in Ethiopia, right? He's been co-opted by the Chinese regime. How is this guy heading World Health Organization? And isn't it clear now that China has co-opted the World Health Organization? That is why वो लोग कह रहे थे कि इसको चाइनीज वायरस मत बोलिए. हालांकि इससे पहले जो भी वायरस जिस ओरिजिन से आता था उसको वही नाम बोलते थे, स्पेनिश को, जिका को, ऑल दैट. तो अगर आप हमारे हिंदी ऑडियंस के लिए बता सकते हैं कि टेड्रोस की हिस्ट्री क्या है, मतलब मुगाबे तक को टेड्रोस कर दिया.
Technically, if you go by the Greek naming system, this Omicron should have been called XI, she.
Right.
It's not pronounced she. In Greek, it's pronounced C, but technically it would have been Xi Jinping virus, right? But they named it Omicron because they didn't want to name it after the president of China. So that was one thing. But I wrote a piece about this man in print. I wrote a 3-part series in print about 2 years back.
I did read that.
This man, he has his hands in blood for a very long time. He was chosen by the Ethiopian regime at one of its darkest phases, when there were huge human rights violations going on, his campaign against AIDS wasn't all that legit. The way he got ahead was, remember, NGOs are a very critical part of this validation. You keep throwing monies at NGOs and allowing them to do things, they'll say, oh, you're a great guy, you understand. As long as you validate them, you understand. If you don't validate them, you're a country, a revanchist country bumpkin right-wing idiot who's hell-bent on destroying your country. Okay. Right. He played the NGO game. The next thing he did was, and if you play the NGO game, mind you, you're set for life. Right. The next thing that he did was, a lot of this also has to do with President Trump. President Trump, remember, withdrew from a lot of organs of the UN. So America really wasn't interested in who became the head of the WHO. The Chinese decided that they wanted to go ahead and make their mark by having their minions run whatever organizations they could get their hands in. They play very strategically, see? When they're not playing stupidly, they actually tend to be quite strategic. They chose this guy. There was no real opposition to him. America wasn't playing its game. India voted for this guy. You know why? Because it was all meant to be that South-South cooperation and all that nonsense.
Oh, God.
So it was all, this man is not a good health guy. He has covered up shit. He is probably complicit in genocide in his own country.
Right.
There
Even
are
in neighboring Sudan.
Yep. There is a lot of slime about this guy in his native Ethiopia. He was just happened to play the NGO game. He happened to play an alignment of stars where Trump was out, China was on the international organization ascendant. He was just at the right place at the right time. That was it.
Right. So I think, in conclusion, what we can understand that, like, again, at the cost of repetition, that there was a lot to hide by the Communist Party of China. Then they covered it up, but then there was a lot of interest of sections of US, and that is why they covered it up. And then came in the pharma lobbies, and then came in the social media giants who all basically scratched each other's back. Now, at least I think at the end, we can leave people with something positive. My assessment, a quick one, and then three of you could give yours, would be that, post-March, once we complete 2 years, let's just open up the world. Maybe India can take the lead and just treat this as an endemic. Take your one booster shot a year. Otherwise, we will see now mental and physical issues happening and rioting happening of people below middle class, and whether that's a developed country or a developing country. Rajat, we can start with you. What would be your thought? This is my thought. Like, this is the path we should take. Otherwise, we're looking at a generation with psychological issues.
So I've been very clear from the very beginning that vaccines are not going to end the pandemic. And I've been saying this for about 2 years, because there is no way for anybody to know whether a vaccine is good or not. If I've taken the vaccine and I don't get the infection, it could also be because the pandemic, the virus's infectivity has gone down. Yeah, my contact mein nahi aa raha. There's no way to test. The only way a pandemic can end is either the virus itself mutates into a very benign form, which seems to be what's happening with Omicron, although we'll still have to wait and see if further mutants end up being benign. That's how typically the evolutionary curve for these viruses go. And with increased transmission, because Omicron, why does it have this increased transmission, is because it doesn't really want to kill you. It just wants to spread faster. So if this trend continues, we could possibly be seeing an endemic kind of a situation, which is the case with the most flus these days. However, if that doesn't work out, there are some drugs that are coming about that are antivirals as opposed to vaccines, where you get infected, you take a pill, the pill kills essentially all the infection that there is in, and it doesn't let it spread. So Merck ka I know, and there is a drug that's almost past the third clinical trial stage, and they have applied for emergency authorization. Although, with what Abhijit has said about the way clinical trials are done, and if there is influence from other sources that are not great, we can't really do about it. I work in the pharma industry. I would still vouch for most of the process that takes place to validate these drugs. So I'm hoping that's the case. So I think I am positive. I think we are heading towards the end, but we need to be very careful.
Right. Amana, what about you?
मुझे लगता है कि जो लॉकडाउन है वो बिल्कुल बंद कर देना चाहिए, स्पेशली इन अ कंट्री लाइक इंडिया जहाँ पे अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर में काफ़ी ज़्यादा जॉब्स हैं. हिंदुस्तान टाइम्स ने पिछले साल एक आर्टिकल लिखा था जिसके हिसाब से 2020 में सिर्फ 47% लोग ही अपनी सैलरीड जॉब बचा पाए थे. तो लोगों की सेविंग्स खत्म हो रही हैं. अभी तक तो हम फिर भी देख रहे हैं कि लोग पुटअप कर रहे हैं, बियर कर रहे हैं, बट इसके बाद नहीं होगा. बहुत सारी फैमिलीज को हम जानते हैं, बहुत सारे रिपोर्ट न्यूज हम पढ़ रहे हैं कि लोगों के साथ क्या हो रहा है. तो और ये नाइट कर्फ्यू का मुझे बिल्कुल समझ नहीं आता कि नाइट कर्फ्यू से क्या प्रोटेक्शन मिलने वाला है.
तो ऊपर से गवर्नमेंट भी है ना, वो लोग अजीब ही तरीके से हैंडल कर रहे हैं. नाइट कर्फ्यू लगा देते हैं, मतलब कोरोना वैम्पायर थोड़े ना.
तो मोबिलिटी रखनी पड़ेगी, जितनी प्रिकॉशन हो सकता है, जो भी साइंटिफिक वेज हैं वो हमें फॉलो करना पड़ेगा. एक चीज़ और है, मैं कहना चाहूँगी कि 50% वर्ल्ड पॉपुलेशन वैक्सीनेटेड हो गई है, लेकिन इस वैक्सीनेशन के प्रोसेस में भी हमको बहुत डिस्क्रिमिनेशन इन द सेंस, जो रिच कंट्रीज़ हैं जो अफोर्ड कर सकती हैं, या फिर जो इंडिया जैसी नेशन है जिन्होंने खुद डेवलप कर लिया था, हमने तो कर लिया है, बट जो पुअर नेशन है उनकी भी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी जो अफोर्ड कर सकते हैं उनको उठाना पड़ेगा कहीं ना कहीं. तो यही मुझे लगता है कि अब इसी में हमें कोई वे ढूंढना पड़ेगा सर्वाइव करने का, और लॉकडाउन कोई सोल्यूशन नहीं है.
Right. Abhijit, you can wrap it up for us. What do you think is the way ahead? क्या करना चाहिए इंडिया को and the rest of the world?
My way ahead is two things. Unfortunately, in India, the first, which is economic common sense, doesn't prevail. In economics, mostly we're neither capitalist nor communist. We follow cranial rectal inversion economics, which is what you're seeing right now with all this no lessons learned from the first two waves, kind of lockdowns and things like that happening. But the second is something positive. I agree with what Rajat said. It's going to become endemic. Remember, the last big pandemic was the flu. It was the influenza epidemic of the First World War, which killed off, again, in the second wave is when it was dangerous. The first wave didn't hit India. It was the second wave that really hit India and accounted for the maximum number of casualties, fatalities. What you're going to see is, like the flu, it's going to be, beta kya hua hai, COVID hua hai, haan wo dawai le lo na, wo usi हम stage पर हम पहुंचने वाले हैं. कि the fear of it is going to go. एक जमाने में होता था ना, leprosy है, lepers were completely thrown out of society and things like that. You're seeing movement towards that. You look at all this nonsense about, denying the unvaccinated services. Why? Vaccination is to protect yourself. If you're vaccinated yourself, then allow the unvaccinated to pick up the price for their own stupidity, na? अगर तुमने अपने बच्चे को पोलियो ड्रॉप्स नहीं दिया है और उस बेचारे बच्चे को पोलियो हो गया है, that's on you. बाकियों पे I mean, you're doing this whole thing. What worries me about all of this is the number of civil liberties that have been turned upside down, the jurisprudence on civil liberties that has been turned upside down. And you combine that with the kind of backdoor socialism, communism you're seeing in America, it's a very, very dangerous trend for individual liberty. That said, the good thing is Omicron, in a way, is the vaccine we all probably needed but never got. Better than Merck, better than Pfizer, better than AstraZeneca or whatever. Right. If you get it, it's a good thing. Just my opinion. Some of you might die, but just take one for the team.
All right, that's a great positive note to end it in after all the revelations and the muck behind and the global conspirators. But yeah, we would like to end it with this. Please take your vaccination, and India can be mighty bloody proud. 150 crore vaccinations. These same Western lobbies were mocking. They thought, we wouldn't be able to do it. India has done it. And the much maligned Bharat Biotech's vaccine has actually performed better than Mr. Pfizer's Chetan Bhagat. So thank you guys. It's been a wonderful discussion, and it's ending on a good note. And I hope in March, the world opens up, India opens up. Thank you, Abhijit. Thank you, Rajat.
Thank you, Abhijit. Thank you.